How's everybody? How's school going? Ah, how sad. The day will come when you will say, I wish I were back in school. I wish the hardest thing was having to study for a test. Because the tests you get now, they're a little harder. Amen? How am I going to pay that when I got this and now that? And the bills keep coming. Amen? And you go, man, you got it so tough. You got practice after school, and it was hard, and you have homework too. Ah, what a tough life. Bummer, isn't it? It's tough. I know we're just being mean, but it will. You turn around and you'll be old like me and be going, what happened? I don't know. But we're talking about time this morning. And I hope you had plenty of time to get ready this morning. I hope you didn't have to rush in your time to get here. I hope you had a good time in worship this morning. Everything, it seems, is based on time. And this morning we're going to be talking about our lives being out of order and our time being out of order. And you say, well, I just don't seem to have as much time as I used to have. Weirdly, you have the same amount of time. Think about that. You have the same amount of time you've always had. I have the same amount of time I've always had. But what do we do with it? That's the thing this morning. So I would share with you a quote from H. Jackson Brown, who said, don't say you don't have enough time. You have exactly the same number of hours per day that were given to Helen Keller, Pasteur, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Thomas Jefferson, and Albert Einstein. Same amount of time. Ouch. He also said, 20 years from now, you will be disappointed not for the things that you did, but for the things that you didn't take time to do. So when we think about it that way, we already can go back 5, 10, 20, 30 years and go, man, while I was there at that place, I wish I would have. There are times in my life that I wish I had stopped a little more. Sorry, dads. Sorry, men. I'm going to have to step on your toes, too. There are times I wish in my life I had been less concerned about making time and getting to the destination, point A to point B, as quickly as possible. And I would have stopped along the way to enjoy the trip on vacation. It took me a long time to realize that it was the journey, not so much the destination. So we would always say, all right, everybody hit the restroom. Don't drink anything. Be quiet. We're going to get there. Those were always joyous times, weren't they? Riding in the car with someone like that. That was me. Sorry. But today we're going to talk about ordering our time and getting it back in order. You see, we don't want to wait until we're out of time to realize how much time we have now. So don't wait until you're out of time to realize that your time is out of order. Psalm 37:23 says this, the Lord directs the steps of the godly. He delights in every detail of their lives. He orders our steps. And He delights when we follow Him. So if He's ordering our steps, He's also ordering our time to get from here to there. But we have to step in the direction that He leads. And we have to follow along at a pace that is in His timing. That's where we kind of get that out of order. The book of Proverbs 4:23, the Bible says this, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. Do you think that could mean time as well? Seems to be telling us to be proactive and not reactive in our time. Big difference. We make things happen. We don't wait and then react. But I think there's probably a perceived lack of time that controls most of our hearts. I want to do that at the church. I want to do that for that neighbor. I want to do these things. I want to travel overseas and do some work in an orphanage, but I never have the time. When I retire, I'll make the time. That goes back to the don't wait until you're out of time to realize it. What if we never make it to retirement? You know, if I were to share with you this morning about a little bit about my journey, many of you know my journey into becoming a pastor. I was a teacher and assistant principal and principal for 20 years. And I finally answered that call. I ran as hard as I could possibly go. And I had so many people say, but you only have 10 more years. Why don't you just go ahead and finish it out? Then you can go and do, and then you'll have that security in your retirement. This past year, one of my friends that I had gone to school with since 5th grade, who was also a teacher, she had her retirement luncheon. And I would be lying this morning if I didn't tell you that. I went, what? That went by pretty quick. But what I stood on at that point in my life is the same thing I stand on today. What if someone dies and goes to hell because I was disobedient now? That's a lot to carry. I said, I've already run for 20 years. I've already known. And I was disobedient. I can't wait any longer. So this morning I want us to understand that it is God who orders our steps and it's His timing, but we must be obedient before we run out of time and then we realize we're out of time. For then it's too late. You know, sometimes we think about guarding God's plan for our lives. Talking about guarding our hearts, and we know God's plan, but we kind of guard it, we kind of shield it, we kind of keep it back because it might be more than we can handle just to step out in the perfect center of His will. You know, Pastor Jared and his wife Anna took a group to Thailand this summer, a group of youth. And from my teaching experience, I would have to say that if I had a group of youth overseas, I would constantly be going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, everybody come into this room. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Woo! But I was sharing with someone about that trip and that he would be coming here to serve, and we were excited about that. And I said, but man, Thailand, that's pretty far from here. Different culture. And someone said to me, I would rather be in the perfect center of God's will in Thailand than be driving around in Tennessee out of God's will. So you see, it's about His will and His timing and what we do with our time. So I'd ask you this morning, how many things go undone in your life because of time? How many of those things are good, godly aspirations, things you want to get to? One of these days I'm going to. Maybe it's just working on a car. One of these days I'm going to get a transmission put in that old Ford and it's going to run. Except for I should have said Chevrolet. But those Fords don't really tear up that much. But it just came out. But I know my grandfather, he would always have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 cars that just needed one thing done. And we would go out there and play in them when the grass wasn't growing up around them, when it was winter and fall and the grass was down. We'd go get, because the time was never available. But how many of those things are godly, holy things? I want to pray more. I want to worship more. I want to help people more. I want to serve the Lord more. Maybe it's I want to join a small group. Maybe it's I just don't have time to get into a small group. Maybe it's that I want to volunteer, but I really can't nail down where that would be or what that would be like. Maybe it's taking your wife on a date. Maybe it's reading or playing ball with your kids. Time has become the enemy of many of us. But time can be a great hoax. The fact that we don't have enough, that can be a great hoax. Because there's still 24 hours in every day that we wake up. 7 days in each week. And is it that we have no time, or that our time is out of order? Is it that we have no time, or is it that we have a clock that is out of order? I have on my watch this morning, and many of you are probably glad. Do you know what this means to a preacher? Nothing. So, because we'll just keep going. But I love this watch. I don't know how long I've had it, probably 20-some years. It's more of a dressy watch than a wear-out-to-cut wood watch. It's more of that kind you wear to work or church on Sunday. And I love this watch because it just continues to do its job. But until about 6 months ago, I haven't been wearing it. It's been in a drawer, out of order, not working at all. When I finally got around to getting it repaired, I was so excited to have it back. And I think, what if we got our time in order in our lives? How excited we would be to go, oh yes, it's okay. Now things are good. But for 2 years, I couldn't wear this watch. The sad truth is, you want to know why? It had no battery. It had no battery. That is sad. That is sad, but I guarantee you there's someone else in here that has something that needs something similar. 5 minutes, and it's fixed. But I never could think to get it, and I never had time to go by and get a battery, or I never would think about it. So that kind of is a great example of how our time gets out of order and what happens when it does. You know, it's been said that sometimes we are too busy mopping the floor to turn off the spigot. We're too busy mopping the floor to simply go over and turn the water off. Because that's how we are in our lives. We're so busy that we simply must just try to keep up. But I would share with you this morning that in guarding our heart, in trying to discern God's order, God's steps, God's timing, that if we could see what it looks like from the outside into our lives, there would be an easy switch. We would flip the switch. And we would say, I want to just cut the water off and clean it up and go again. There's this busyness. So I want to give you some symptoms of out of order time. Symptoms of out of order time are things are simply a mess. Maybe your desk is a mess. Maybe your house is a mess. Maybe your car is a mess. Maybe some relationships are a mess. Maybe you forget some things that are important, and you go, oh, man. I'll be very honest. Sometimes I have times that it just gets to be that my time gets out of order, and I go, oh, wow, missed that. And we continue on because we can't slow it down. We can't stop it. Because we got to get to the next thing or do the next thing. So we spend our time sometimes on unproductive things, or we just feel bad about a lot of things. Maybe you feel like you need to be reading your Bible every day for 4 hours and you don't get it done. Maybe you have heard that you need to be doing this so much a day in order to be a Christian who is truly a follower of Christ, and you feel bad because you simply push it back. You have good intentions, but the action is not there. Maybe it's that pressure that gets to you, so you feel bad about who you are as a person, who you are as a follower of Christ. And that leads to depression and a world spinning out of control. And we say, it's all because I don't have enough time. Before you expect yourself to spend 5 hours alone with God, try 5 minutes in earnest prayer and reading His Word. And grow it from there. You see, Satan wants us to feel like our time is out of order, that we have this hoax of not having enough time, and that God is not the one that orders our steps. Because if he can get us to feel bad, if he can get us to think, well, I've missed a week of church. If I go back this week, they're going to ask me where I was. I can't go, and then it's a month, and then 2 months, and well, I really can't go now. Guess what? Satan has just used you to disrupt what's going on in church. Well, I missed my Sunday to volunteer, and I forgot to tell anybody. I can't go back now. I'll just go somewhere else. If you go somewhere else, guess what's going to happen? I'll give you a hint. Same thing. Same thing, because we are human. We're going to get things wrong sometimes. We're going to mess up, but we have this mindset that we have to be perfect. We're never going to be perfect, but we can be better when we have things in order. So where does our time go? We have plenty of time. It's just out of order. Would you agree that the people on this side of the auditorium have the same amount of time as the people on this side of the auditorium? Yes. Would you agree that the people in the center have more because they're closer to God because they sat right in the middle? Okay, I guess not, but they're right here. We all have the same amount of time, but where does our out of order time go? I'll tell you where out of order time goes. It flows toward where we are weak. It flows to where you are weak. So if your weakness is surfing the web, if your weakness is texting, if your weakness is social media on your phone, if your weaknesses are your hobbies, when you know that the grass in your ditch line is up to your knees and you need to weed eat it, and you say, well, I got the front yard mowed, our small group loves us, it'll be okay. That's where that goes. Say, I'm tired, I'm not doing it. And it goes right to where it's weak. I'll just go in here and sit down because I think there's a football game on anyway and it's late. So we need to prioritize what needs to be done so that we don't get caught up doing the useless and then all of a sudden go, oh my goodness, they're going to be here in 30 minutes. We better get this done. I saw a show the other night that this lady was out bringing in the trash cans in her driveway. And an old high school friend pulls in the driveway who had won $1 million on a game show. And she pulled into her driveway and she said, hey, and she's like, ah. So she goes running in the house and she starts screaming at her family. Pick this stuff up, get it out of here. They're just cleaning off the counters, putting it in trash bags, throwing it in the rooms, and then it goes back to the lady knocking on the door of the house, and instead of having on her robe, bringing in the trash can, she's got her makeup on, the house is spotless, and then she's like, hey, and all this supposedly happened in 2 minutes. And I thought, how true is that? How true is that? It's sometimes true that our time gets away from us, our out of order time flows to our weakness, and then things go undone. And then it is usually ruled by other people in our lives. Our out of order time is usually ruled by other people in our lives. And now, if you leave your time out of control, if we leave our time out of control, someone will control it if it's not organized around God's purpose. What does God want? See, we have these things that we do and going through our daily lives and our routines, and we'll stop and minister to someone and we'll do these other things. And the thing that was priority kind of slides back and slides back. And others can control our lives because out of order time usually has to surrender to emergencies. Out of order time has to surrender usually to the demands of emergencies. Now, that doesn't mean someone's hurt and you have to go to the hospital. That doesn't mean that something has happened to someone and they're in an accident and you have to go to the home. That means if someone in your office has left something undone and they come and bring something to you and they say, I've got to have this done by 5 o'clock. And you look at them and you go, it's 4:30. It's 2 hours worth of work. Then that emergency, that person has just controlled your time. So then you have to call your family and tell them, hey, have to do something else. That's where that out of order time goes. And we let other folks take control many times. Charles Hummel said, we are governed by the tyranny of the urgent. So sometimes when our time is out of order, we're at the mercy of others. So where is your life today? If you know God has placed you on this earth for a reason, you're on a mission, then be about it. Because in our minds, we may not have it down exactly what we're going to do or how our time is planned out. So someone else might think, oh, I know you don't have anything going on, so could you do this for me? And you go, sure I will. And then it throws us out of order because we feel obligated. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, and he delights in his way. As we shared earlier, are you allowing God to order your steps? Or are you allowing an undisciplined lifestyle to rob you of your eternal destiny and doing what God put you here on this earth to do. Just for a few moments, we're going to take a look at the world's greatest time manager ever, Jesus. I want you to think just for a moment with me as we go through this about the pressure he lived under. You think you have a high-pressure job. You think you have something that's really pressure-packed in what you do. Last week we talked about the bracelet, what would Jesus do? How about how did Jesus manage his time? Everywhere he went, he was pressured by something or someone. Could you teach us, Rabbi? Could you heal my son? Could you heal me? Could you go down and just pray with? Would you mind coming over and helping out with? Everywhere he went. And every word, every deed, every action was so closely monitored. No private life. But how many times in the Bible do you recall reading that Jesus was in such a hurry he had to? Jesus was so far behind schedule and was so late that Jesus got into a fight with the disciples all the way to because they were behind. 0. Mainly because Jesus knew his mission. Many times we don't order our time because we don't know our mission. What it truly is about. He took the time to receive from heaven. He took the time to get alone with God. But he was busy. Oh man, was he busy. He always had stuff. He always had a place to go. He always had a place to be. He always had someone in need. Guess what? He still took time to get away and be alone with God. His Father. He didn't schedule out all of his time for everything else. Part of being and knowing his mission was ordering his time so that it wasn't out of order and going, oh my goodness, I don't know, I'm late. Oh my goodness, I don't know, everything's a mess. And he took time to pour into other people. So if our mission is to be a Christian and be a follower of Christ, we have to know our mission, order our time, spend time with our Father. And we have to go about this life understanding that we are called to pour into other people as well. The question, so what should you be doing with your time? Psalm 90, verse 12 says this. Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. Teach us to realize the brevity of life so that we may grow in wisdom. In other words, teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. And then that heart would be guarded with that wisdom that we gain. The brevity of life. You know, as you go through different stages of life, you live in the stage you are in. I know that may seem very simplistic, but you live in the stage you are in. But I want you to maybe take a moment sometime today, and maybe you do this. But I frequently look at other people who are younger than me and go, I remember when I was there. I'll take time to actually say, oh, that was really cool how you could just, stay up late, get up early, not have a lot of cares, not a lot of worries. And think about how time has gone by. And then I'll see people older than me, and I go, I wonder what it's going to be like when and if I get to that place. Wonder what it's going to be like when I get to be there. The brevity of life, how quickly it goes. For those who just graduated this year, it seems like the world is unfolding before them, and they're just like, wow, this is crazy how awesome this is. Because young people want to be 15 so they can get their permit, and 16 so they can get their license, and 18 so they can vote, and 21 so that they're actually an adult in the eyes of the world. And then 25's not bad. And then 30, 40, 50, 60, you start going, wish I was 16. I'll take 18. I'd take 40. I'd take 50. And you talk to people and they'll be like, I'll switch ages with you. And you go, I'm good. I'm good. The brevity of life. So the two things we have to make sure that we do as we close. Number your days. Number your days. Ask yourself, I wonder how many days I have left. What if this were my last week? What if this were my last month? If I know my mission, will I get it accomplished? Will I make some steps along the way? Number your days. Make them count. Make them count. If I had to share one thing with you this morning that I would be considered guilty of is, we know that we all need rest. And we all need more rest. And the older I get, the more rest I feel like I need. But I have a hard time going to bed early because I don't want to miss anything. Maybe it's because I'm a night owl also. I don't know. People say, what time do you go to bed? Well, I usually try to get in at 9 or 10. Well, I usually try to make sure I'm in by 12 every night. Maybe a little later. But then in the morning, maybe I would be a little happier if I had gone to bed a little earlier. But I think that's because I wonder if I didn't wake up, would my mission be accomplished? I want to get everything out of every minute, out of every hour that I can in this life. More importantly, now than ever, I want to know that I get to the end of this journey and I stand across from God on my face in worship. I want to hear the words, well done, thou good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little, I'll make you ruler over much. You see, we're guilty in this world of thinking that this is so much and it's so overwhelming, when really our part is just a little. Be a follower of Christ, share Christ, reach people for Christ, disciple people in the name of Christ. That's it. That's our mission. And if we have those other fun things that come along, and we get to have a family, and we get to have time, we get to have fun along the way, then great. But know your mission, number your days, make them count. And it's okay to say, hey, here's what I've got today. This is what's got to be done. This is in order. Everything's laid out according to His plan, not mine. Then those bumps in our calendar, those bumps in the road are not such a big deal. Maybe this morning you heard this message and you're saying, wow, that's really good for you. I've got it all under control. If that's you this morning, congratulations. If it's not you this morning, I would say, give it over to God. Say, God, I need you to start ordering my steps every day. I want to start every day in your word with prayer time with you, with a quiet time with you. And then order them from there. Tired of being this out of order watch laying in a drawer. Put a new battery in me and make me useful. Maybe it's your home that is out of order because of time. Whatever it is. This morning, you just come and lay it down right here. And maybe you would say this morning, Pastor, I'm just completely out of order. Cluttered and out of order. That's me. Because I don't know this Jesus that you're talking about, who knew his mission. If you don't know Christ this morning, I urge you, I beg you to make your way right over here in just a few moments, and someone will be able to share Christ with you. And you can leave completely in order. Would you pray with me? Father, I thank you so much this morning for your word. Lord, teach us to allow you to order our steps. Lord, teach us to guard our hearts that we may find wisdom. God, teach us to number our days, or to understand the brevity of this life, that we might gain wisdom and we might follow you in all that we do. God, for those here this morning that are struggling with this very issue, God, we all are. Let us slow down a little bit. And let us regain control of our time. And Lord, let us be about serving you with the time we have left. Let us not wait until we're out of time to realize we're out of time. God, you have your way and your will during this time of invitation, during this time of prayer, during this time of salvation for some. And God, I pray if there's one here that doesn't know you, Lord, let them not leave this place without having that settled. And we'll thank you and we'll praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.